Okay, so hopefully that's showing now as live. Yes, I think that's fine. Okay, so let's start. So today we are talking about how to master your emotions on divorce, and I will explain to you a little bit later why this is so important, because it does make a big difference to how your divorce goes. If this is your first session with me, then let me explain how the session will work. I talk for about 25, 30 minutes. Sometimes I do go a bit over, just because I'm really passionate about the different elements that I talk about. So the session that I talk about is about 25 to 30 minutes. After that, I take questions from you. So if you've got any questions, feel free to put them in the chat box. You can send me a direct message. You interact with me so that I know your questions. They may be about the topic that I'm talking about. Your questions may be related to something else, but put them in the chat box and I'll try and come to them at the end. So yeah, it's great if you are interacting with me. It lets me know that, what I'm talking about is useful. It lets me know where you're up to. So it's great to hear from you. So that's how the session goes. It is recorded. There is a replay that's sent out to you. So if you can't stay on for all of it, or you want to catch up with some that you've missed, or you're not watching it live and you're watching it on replay, at least you've got access to that. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now so we can start. And do let me know if you can see it okay. I hope you can. And I'll keep an eye on the chat box as well, so I can catch up with anything that you guys are saying. So I've got a private message. Let me just read that out to you. Struggling sometimes with emotions, anxiety, loss of appetite, and then with moving forward in the process. Always need some form of reassurance. How can this be managed? A really interesting question, so thank you for sending that. I've got another direct message saying that I'm just starting in the process. I'm really worried about my emotions during this time because it's already quite tricky and I don't know how I'm going to get through. It's a similar message, and I'll definitely come to talking about that when we look at the questions and as I'm going through. Do share with me what you are doing already to try and help yourselves, because it can really make a difference to others when they hear what you're doing. And again, feel free to send it as a direct message if you don't want to share. This is a really difficult time. I mean, if you're here, it's because you're going through a divorce. Maybe you're thinking about it. Maybe you're about to start, or you might even be in the middle of it. But we know this is a really tricky time. A little bit about myself. I went through this 12 and a half, 13 years ago. I realized that I was going to face my relationship coming to an end. I didn't really know what to call it at the time, but I knew that I had to take some action. I'd been married for 15 years. We got 3 children together, and it was a decision that was so hard to make. I mean, I had so much anxiety just making that decision, and some of you will understand that. I really struggled to cope with trying to get to that point where I could say I'm strong enough. Many times during the marriage, I felt like I had to do it, and I just couldn't deal with how it felt. But a year before the marriage ended, I decided that I was going to have to face this at some point. So I would spend time getting myself stronger. I knew that I needed to build myself up ready for the marriage coming to an end. And so I did spend time from that point, 2010, starting to take steps. And when 2011 came round and I knew that this separation was going to happen, I was a little bit stronger, ready to face it. But I don't think anyone truly understands how this feels until they are there, until they face this moment of knowing that the marriage was over and knowing you were going to take these steps. And I was the one who took the steps. I was the one who made the decision. And even then, I was a complete mess. And I guess it was because, when you start on this journey of marriage, deciding that you want to be in this relationship and committed together, maybe having a family together, you never think it's going to come to an end. It's always that happily ever after. This is forever. And you build your dreams on this. And that's what I did. My future was linked to his. I felt like everything we had, children together, finances were completely interlinked. I'd changed as a person. And so it becomes so difficult leaving. But I knew I had to. And some of you will be in that same place as well. My children at the time I made the decision, they were 10, maybe 9, 6, and 18 months. So really young. And I'd been practicing as a lawyer as soon as I came out of uni, and I'd done my traineeship. And so, and I was a family lawyer as well. And so I never believed that I would fall into that trap. I thought I would always understand how to make a marriage work. And to be honest, I don't think anybody can know this is coming. But my experience as a lawyer obviously helped me through my separation, through my divorce. But what you don't realize is the emotions that are going to hit you. As much as I had legal knowledge, the emotions were so difficult to manage. It felt like it was like I didn't know anything, because that is the most difficult bit. You can get through a legal process. You can figure out some of the things you need to figure out, but the emotions are the bit that if you can't get them under control, if you are always struggling mentally, then what you find is it's a struggle to try and get everything else in line. So that's why this was really important to me, to talk about emotions. And as a lawyer, you would think, why am I talking about this? But the work that I do involves everything, not just emotions, not just the legal process and the financial aspect and the element around children. But this is a subject that's really important to look at so that you can master your emotions a bit better. And this will help you make better decisions, because we know that divorce is all about the decisions that you need to make. There's so many things that you have to think about, so many things that you will need to deal with, and so many decisions to make. And some of these decisions are huge, they're life-changing. You will be looking at where you're going to live, you're looking at financial settlements that you can't change in the future. They're a one-off aspect of your divorce. Arrangements for children, again, sometimes once you've started a certain plan, it's really hard to change it. So again, really important that you make decisions from a place of your emotions being stable. So that's why this is really important. And it would be great to hear what you've been doing, what your emotions are like currently, so we can talk about what we can do to help you. So let me move on to different tips that I have. And the reasons why I bring these are the different things that I use. So it's really important to find out what you are currently using and what is helping you. And obviously the first thing is mindset. Getting your mindset right, keeping your mind calm, understanding the tools that you've got or that help you are really important, because everybody's different and different things will help you. So think about using different elements of the tips that I'm sharing, the tips that other people might share as well. So the first thing is controlling your mind, relaxing your mind. And any relaxation techniques such as deep breathing, meditation, and yoga will really help you manage stress. I was an expert recently on a retreat, and these are the kind of things that we did during the retreat. There was lots of deep breathing, lots of just keeping silence, even if it was 10 minutes in the morning, just spending time in silence, clearing your thoughts, because then your brain is not overloaded, because probably during the night you're not sleeping, and even through your sleep it's very unsettled, you're anxious, you are tossing and turning, and daytime obviously your thoughts are flooding in. So having a period where you can silence your mind is really important. But don't think you've got to do these techniques for hours. Um, Even having a routine that is 20 minutes in the morning and maybe 10 minutes before you go to sleep can be enough to help you. The first thing is deep breathing, and I have a real problem with this because I know I don't breathe correctly, and most of us don't. We don't get enough oxygen. So actually, if this really helps you, having that breath where you take a deep breath, you hold it in for 2, and you let it out for 2. That something like that can focus your mind on breathing rather than other things. And then you could extend it, hold it, take a deep breath in for 4 and out for 4. And those sort of box breaths really help you to relax. It clears your mind. It can help you with your health. But what you will find is when you are feeling really stressed, just taking a few minutes of doing that can calm your nervous system and calms you down. And maybe then you can relax your mind a little as well. So try something like that when you are feeling really stressed, when those emotions come in thick and thin. And it can be any time of the day, it doesn't just have to be in the morning. There's lots of people that talk about deep breathing. You may have come across some of them. So Gary Brecker talked about it. Sorry, while I just get some water. And Wim Hof, you may have heard of Wim Hof as well. He shares quite a lot on his YouTube channel and on social media. So you don't need to spend money doing these things. Check out some of their 5-minute videos, 10-minute videos, and see if you can find your favorite one to do when you are feeling really emotional, really stressed. Again, with meditation, lots of you will say, I can't meditate. My thoughts are really strong. And I remember when I first started these things, because I really needed it as a routine in the morning. I didn't sleep at night. I was always stressed out during the day, especially with young children, getting back into work. I found my stress levels were so elevated. And just spending that 5 minutes, 10 minutes in the morning in silence, and I didn't know what to call it. I didn't necessarily call it meditation, but I just sat with my eyes closed, focusing on my breathing and just listening to sounds. That really helped me calm my thoughts. Lots of thoughts came in, and I kind of tried to ignore them and not get involved, because during this moment of silence, you will find that these thoughts will come in, and that's okay. You're not going to clear your mind completely, but just allow the thoughts to come in and go out as well, to see if that can help. You can also try guided meditation if it helps, because a 5 to 10 minute morning meditation to help you with your energy, to help you with anxiety. You can find meditations that suit exactly how you're feeling. I use those on YouTube to actually calm myself down and to deal with whatever was coming up for me. Sometimes it was just protecting me from negativity. Sometimes I used a method that was just for positivity. Anything that I was feeling, maybe anger, fear, and just doing this helped me realize how I was feeling. And then after the meditation, I wrote things down. So I spent a few minutes just writing down what was coming up for me, the thoughts that had come up for me in the night, how I was feeling that morning, because actually then I could look at what I was feeling and understand myself. And there are other things that writing down your thoughts can really help with. Once you have written things down, it's out of your mind. It's on paper. Your questions are on paper. The things you're thinking and feeling are on paper. So that can really help you. Some of you won't be able to write things down because you're still living with your ex-husband or wife. And in those situations, you could use a locked note with a password to just note down how you're feeling. It helps you come up with a pattern of thoughts, because every morning you're writing this down, and you might feel that this fear that you've got around finances keeps coming up. Your fear around how to make ends meet keeps coming up every morning. And then actually going to find the answers on that will give you clarity, because fear comes up because we're not clear and we don't understand a situation. And sometimes we'll stick our head in the sand because we don't want to deal with it. Sometimes we will just not look at it because we're scared of what will come up if we look at it. But actually, if we look at it and we find the answers, we can maybe do something about it, or maybe start just understanding our situation. Because a lot of anxiety comes from not understanding your situation. So it's really good to write a few things down or just be aware of what's coming up for you. The other thing that I found really useful, and I'll tell you the things that I found useful, is writing down three things that I was grateful for. I started off not being grateful for anything. I felt like there's nothing in my life that I'm grateful for. But the things I wrote down were the sun is shining. I'm able to get out of bed. I've got my health. My children are here. So I found those things first. And then later on, I could write about the support that I got, or that friend that popped round to help me out with the children. And slowly that made me change my mindset, and you won't even notice it happening. My mindset started becoming more and more positive. And this positivity and the gratitude daily helped me get through, because I could reframe anything that was coming up for me. So sometimes I may have had an argument by text with my ex over a certain point, just because when you're going through the divorce, the emotions are much heightened. So we would go through this text argument, and I would look for the gratitude and the positives in what we were discussing. And sometimes I was able to change how I spoke. I spoke from a place of gratitude. I spoke from feeling positive, just so that I could change the energy in that communication. And that always seemed to help me. So try something like that to find that positivity in a really difficult time. And I still use that all the time, in everyday life, really. The other thing that I incorporated was movement. And movement for me initially was just walking, getting outside, doing a brisk walk, getting my heart rate elevated. But it got me outside. It made me feel grounded. I could see nature around me. And obviously, it doesn't cost a lot, and it doesn't have to take up a lot of time. With a young child, walking was really great because then you're out with your child, they're running around. It's good for them, good for you just to get out of the house. And so I started looking at movement. Slowly, I started moving on to running. And I wasn't a runner, but just those brief stints of running helped. Listening to really motivating music, a podcast that would lift me up, not anything too negative, but something that would lift me up, or just being outside was great. And then I moved on to actually doing sports. So I quite like netball. I was playing squash. And the team sports helped with just feeling like I had a social life, which sometimes goes away when you're going through a divorce. But even the movement really helped me forget what I was going through. And actually, there is a lot of science behind movement and how it makes you feel. So, but obviously, you're getting fitter, maybe you're around people, maybe it's just giving you that rush of adrenaline, which is great for you. It might be that you go to the gym and that's great for you, but find movement that brings you joy, whatever that is. I did some free workouts on YouTube because I couldn't afford a lot when I was going through my divorce. And then later on, I joined exercise classes and I ran one of my own just to get that social element in my day as well. Again, you don't have to do very much. You might go for a 5-10 minute walk in the day. You might not take your car to pick the children up. You might walk there just to give you that extra bit of feel good factor, really. But do what brings you joy from a movement point of view, dancing, anything that brings you joy. But generally, during this time, if there is something that makes you happy, try and fit that into your week. It might be a walk with friends. It might be going out in the evening. You might have hobbies that you're not doing anymore, like art or cooking, anything like that that you used to do that you've forgotten or you've just not got round to, because those things will keep you going. long soaks in the evening. So I did that when the children went to bed. I would fill up the bath. I would use lavender just so that that would help me sleep. I'd have a long soak, which relaxed me, and then I got a better sleep, which was really important. I started reading a bit before bed again. That really helped me. So you're thinking, I've got all these things to do, and now I've also got these things to make me feel good as well. How am I going to get the time? And I do understand that as well. We waste a lot of time. We scroll on our phones, we're looking at messages, emails, and it's really, you can find an extra 20 minutes in your day to incorporate certain self-care habits. And I must admit, when I was a single mum and the children were really young, I really struggled with fitting in too much, but I did it before they woke up and a little bit at bedtime as well. But if you prioritize yourself just a little bit, you'll be much calmer, you'll be more productive, you'll be able to make better decisions, feel less anxious. Don't try and do 10 new things. Just try one new habit today. Run that for 2, 3 days, maybe a week. See how that feels. And then add another habit. And I did something called habit stacking, where I added slowly 2, 3 habits in the morning. So before I got out of bed, I would do some meditation. I would do some deep breathing with that. And I did my writing in the morning. So I'd done my sort of 10, 20 minutes in the morning before I got out of bed. And then I did a little bit of reading at bedtime as well, just because that helped me sleep a bit better. So think about what you can do to calm your mind. And if you've got any tips that you're doing, then that would be great to hear. But the other thing is, we get overwhelmed because we look at the whole picture. And I do that whenever I've got something new happening, which is big. And this is a massive thing. We look at the whole thing and we're asking questions that are maybe 6 months ahead. And you're thinking about things in 3 years and 4 years and what's going to happen in 10 years. What we need to focus on is what you're working on right now. So break down what you're doing into what you need to achieve this week. Try not to look at everything else. If you know you've got an important document to complete, for the moment, focus on that document. And if it's, say, something like a Form E, some of you will have come across that. Again, break that down into small pieces. So today, all I'm going to do is ring 2 estate agents. I'm not going to do the whole Form E. I'm going to ring 2 estate agents, speak to them, maybe get a desktop valuation of the property, maybe get them round, book an appointment for them to come over. If you've got time and you feel like you can do more, then maybe do another step. But just break it down into small things that you will do every day, rather than looking at this form and feeling really overwhelmed, because all these things are overwhelming. So think about your tasks for this week and what can you do every day to move that forward. And think about, obviously, there may be some deadlines, so you need to make it small actions every day to help you get to that deadline. And certain things are not in your control. So remember that you will be thinking about a situation and you'll say, I can't believe the other person did that. Why did he do that? And he said this and he said the other, or she said that or did that. And I can't understand that. Certain things are not in your control. We get overwhelmed by our thoughts and things that the other person did or didn't do. And that's not in your control. You cannot control how they are behaving. It's not up to you how they behave. You have to think about what's in your control. So if your ex is, say, sending you messages that are not very nice, they're pressurizing you on a certain decision, you can't stop them from necessarily doing that. You have to decide how you're going to behave. And you may say to them that I'm not going to contact you, communicate with you via text message on this point. I will consider my situation and I will come back to you tomorrow. You can send me as many messages as you like, but I'm not going to deal with it today. So you've taken control and said, I'm not going to deal with this barrage of pressure that you're putting on me. I will take my time. I will think on this evening, and tomorrow you will get a message. And that's all you can do. You can't control that person. So think about what's in your control and how you behave and what you need to deal with. Focus on the things that you can control. which stops you feeling so overwhelmed and actually can change the energy of how you're communicating. Now, expectation is a really big one. This can also make you feel overwhelmed because you may be expecting your ex to do something and they don't do it. It may be that you didn't communicate that you wanted them to do it. It may be that, again, what they do is out of your control. But expectations can lead to a big weight on you. So think about whether something that you're expecting to happen, did you communicate it? Did you make steps to let the other person know that this is what you needed to happen? Is it because it's part of a court order and you're expecting it to happen? Again, don't expect that they'll follow a court order. Don't expect that they'll tell the truth. Don't expect that they will behave the right way. Always prepare yourself emotionally and from a legal point of view for them not to behave the way that you expect, because that's when people are disappointed. That's when you get hurt. That's when you get overwhelmed. And sometimes that's also when you haven't prepared yourself from a legal point of view because you thought they would tell the truth or not behave badly. And they did. So that those things can really throw you off. But when you're actually looking at your divorce, not just your mindset, because we've talked about that, but when we're looking at your divorce, what can you do to manage your emotions, to stop the overwhelm and make this a bit easier? The first thing is know what your goal is. I always get my clients to think about where they are going. What is important to them? What are the 3 or 5 most important goals that you're trying to achieve through this? So your goal may be that you want to keep the family home. And if that's the case, everything we do is around that. The proposals that we come up with are around that. So everything has to be done with that goal in mind. And then we know where we're going and we can vision it. When things get tough, you can have a visual of what you are doing. Your goal may be that you have a good parenting relationship with your ex, and that's a great priority. And then all your communication is about that. Everything you do is around that. So that's, again, a really important thing. You might have a priority that you stay in the same location to make it easy for the children, to keep things stable for them. They go to the same school. It may be that keeping the family home isn't your priority, but staying in that locality is. And again, we base everything on that. So understand what is important to you. Understand whether you want a quick divorce, whether you want it to be truly amicable. Again, we can try and make it amicable, but we can't control what the other person does. But you can change your mindset and your energy towards that. So think about your goals, and you may need to reassess this during your divorce. So I would prioritize what your goals are, because then you understand where you're going and what's important to you. Be realistic. You're not going to be able to fight every single battle. Some people will say, I want to fight everything. Everything they say, everything they do, everything that doesn't go your way. Sometimes it's not possible for that to happen because we've got 2 people who've got their own direction that they want to go in, their own thoughts, their own values, plan for their life, so, and their own priorities. That the other person will only think of things from their priorities. Everything people do is from their own priorities. So your ex will have their own priorities and they will always do things from that place. Their priority may be different from yours. Be realistic. We need to somehow compromise, find creative solutions, maybe drop some of the battles. So you may say, having the children live with me is my priority, but how much contact they have, I'm pretty flexible on that. So there'll be certain battles that you don't need to fight, certain battles that you have to fight. So think about which battles you want to fight. Be realistic about this being a compromise in certain aspects, and certain aspects you need to stand your ground. Think about the cost, because the cost can really elevate if you fight every battle. The cost can also elevate if you have an aggressive tone constantly, if you are really looking at fighting this out. We need to think about your mental health. We need to think about what this is going to be like for the children, for yourself, what you're trying to achieve, as well as how much it's going to cost. So think about where you could compromise and be willing to compromise. Sometimes when you compromise, it's not that you're giving everything away, but you're tweaking things so that the other person may say, is it possible that I don't have the children on a Wednesday because I do a long day at work? And you might say, well, I do a long day at work on Monday, so let's adjust things. It may be that a compromise is needed. Another thing that you have to think about is how you communicate. Because if you don't communicate effectively, then you will be overwhelmed. Your mental health will suffer. Your anxiety levels will go up. Try and keep your conversations focused on whatever it is that is the issue. So your ex rings and you have a conversation. And one of my clients rang her ex yesterday about a certain settlement. And she came back to me and said, I tried to talk constructively with him. He only wanted to talk about other things, not about the thing that we were trying to agree on. And so I cut the call short and realized that I'll just send an email with my proposal, because there is no point getting into an argument about 10 years ago you did this and remember that happened, and because that's not constructive. So she shut the call down, didn't want to get involved in all the other discussions, and then sent an email. And sometimes that's what you have to do. Don't get sidetracked by emotions, personal attacks. Sometimes that's what your partner wants. It may not be what you want, but they take you down that route and you may have to stop it. Think about how you react to their text messages, to emails, maybe their solicitor's emails. You don't need to respond straight away. You might feel triggered by what they've said. And so it's best to take a step back and not respond straight away, or react. You need to take measured responses. So think about whether you could put it away and come back to it tomorrow when you maybe feel less triggered, you're calmer, you've had time to think about what you are going to say, and then respond carefully on the points that you need to respond on. Not everything, because they'll say, they might say certain things that trigger you. They may say, well, last week you did this, and it's completely irrelevant to the subject. Come back to what is the issue at hand and what you need to agree. Because that's really important. Keep your children's needs in mind at all times. What's important is your children, if you have them. They are priority. And so we have to come back to, what do they need? Don't speak negatively in front of the children about your ex-partner. That's not great for them. They're going through a really difficult time and they need your support as well. So think about your steps, which I mentioned. Think about the goals that you have. Divorce is really overwhelming. Be realistic about what you can achieve. Be realistic about the support that you need. Because sometimes it's not possible for you to do all of this by yourself. Sometimes you need someone to guide and support you, be alongside you. You may not want a solicitor doing everything for you because it's costly, but you might need other options. Get support from family and friends, get their buy-in if you can. Because again, if they are there with you, then they can help you, either whether it is just taking you out, it might be that they're there to help you talk things through, because somebody else's thoughts can be really important during this time, their own opinion on things. They may be there to take the children off your hands while you're working on certain things. Look for a supportive network, which is really important, and I'll talk about that a bit more, and professional support as well. But every divorce is different, and different things will come up for you. The battles that you end up facing, the ones that you choose to fight, will depend on your circumstances. But by focusing on getting your mindset right and your emotions calmer, your stress levels slightly lower, because I know it won't completely go away, you can really make better decisions during this time. Focus on your priorities and your goals. Think about the cost and the long-term consequences of everything that you're doing, and try and make informed choices about everything that you need to decide along this journey. And I have to obviously just limit what I'm talking about because of time. So these subjects are so big and I could talk about so many things, but I have to try and keep it a little bit summarized. But to get organized, it can really, again, help your mindset. Collect important documents and find a system where you can keep things organized in that system, in that process. So it may be that if you've got a digital system, you might be saving things on your laptop. Make sure you've got a system so you've got your divorce documents in one place, your financial documents in one place, and financial documents will be your financial documents, the other person's financial documents, settlement proposals. Then you've got arrangements around the children and any other practical decisions that need to be made. So there's a legal process here, there's an emotional process, there's a financial process, and then obviously lots of other things as well. But really think about your financial inventory. And I tell people to work on this all the time. Start looking at what you've got as assets. Start looking at the other person's assets if you know about them. Look at what you owe, your liabilities, and start creating that asset and liability information so that you feel organized. You've got this information to hand because you'll be asked about it constantly. And think about your income and expenditure as well, because that is really important information that we will need throughout your divorce. How much do you earn? What money comes in? What money will go out? So that during that time, you're well informed of your different options. So that's everything that I have to share. I'll tell you a little bit about how to work with me. So my program is at the moment the only way to work with me because I get quite full with one-to-one, so I don't take on many of those. But the program is for 6 months of support and guidance. It's a fixed fee, which means that you are not worried about spiraling legal costs. Legal costs can go, recently somebody mentioned that they'd spent 100,000 on legal costs. But they could start at sort of 10,000 upwards, depending on how difficult your process is. What I do to make it easier for you is give you a fixed fee, because then you're not worried about, oh my God, I can't ask that question because that's going to cost me so much money. Every email costs £200-300 and I'm worried. So we keep your fee fixed so that you're not worried. And again, that can help with anxiety because you come along, you ask the questions, you get clear on everything. I will speak to you about communication. So if you've had an email from your ex or their solicitor, I can help you and guide you on how to respond. I can check over documents, help you with documents that you need to prepare. We work on your divorce application. We look at financial disclosure. Then we are looking at, and financial disclosure is being transparent about the assets and liabilities. You've got to provide that, and the other person has to provide that. And once we have that, we can look at what could you settle on your finances? What could be fair and reasonable? What do you need? So we look at those proposals, we come up with a settlement option, and then you negotiate that with the other side. It's in a group, and that's really super helpful for the people in the group because not only do they get me, but they get a tribe of people who are there going through the same thing, that have experienced similar things. So you're not on your own. And we get other experts in as well to come and talk to you. And so this is some client feedback, and I've actually put that there, and you can have a read of what she said through working with me in the group program. But I'll tell you a little bit about her and what her story was. She found out that she was going to go through a divorce quite suddenly, and it was very unexpected. She thought the relationship was doing well. She thought everything was fine, and they were living abroad temporarily. She found out her husband had a girlfriend and wanted to stay with that person, and so it was quite a difficult situation. Emotions were really high for her. She was so anxious. There wasn't a call initially that she didn't cry. She always cried. So it was quite tough getting her to calm down, find ways to calm her down, but also just give her small tasks to do so she felt like she was moving forward. She had a disability, which meant she had limited income, and that gave her a lot of fear, as you can imagine. When you know that your income is really limited, you're not going to be able to go out and get a full-time job. It is a worry. After we started working together, we submitted her divorce application, which again, it was such a frightening thing for her knowing that things were starting, but she knew she needed to take control. And I helped her take control of this situation. Because she felt out of control, she hadn't made the decision, everything had been taken from her. We need to get back control and start moving forward. We went through this very long process of financial disclosure, which actually helped us get clarity on what there was, what options could be available to her, which we worked on together. And then we came up with 4 financial proposals, which actually could work. They were all fair and reasonable, but we knew one of them was better for her because it gave her an income level, which meant that if she couldn't work, that was fine. I supported her through the negotiations, and actually the agreement that she got to was better than the one that we had put down, because obviously I'm encouraging her to start a bit higher. So she got to an agreement that was put into a financial order and sealed by the court, and then she got her final order. And this was something that she wrote, and actually something I hadn't asked her to write, so that was great. And I'll be doing a case study with her soon, so you'll get her full story and where she started and where she ended up and how she got there. So hopefully that will be useful for you. But if this is something that you think would be useful for you, then do reach out to me. I will share links on how you can book a call, how you can give me the information so we can work out where you are and where you are going, and see if the program is a right fit for you. I have a planner, and this planner is actually to help you take action, because that's the important thing. We want you to take action, and it gives you sheets that you can fill in and downloadable sheets as well for you to fill in. These are different ways that you can get in touch with me, so feel free to do that. Different social media aspects, you can send me messages there. You can drop me a message on my website, and there's lots of things you can download as well. So Nelma, if you're on the call, I think you are, do drop those links to on the chat box so people can book in a call if they think that would be useful for you. So I'm going to go through your questions now, and before I do that, I'll just stop